Hey, what's up everybody? Justin here to review you Hajime no Ippo for the PlayStation 3. Yes, I have reviewed one of the PS2 games and the PSP game, but this PS3 entry was not published by ESP, in which it was acquired by D3, which would later be acquired by Bandai Namco, who would then later develop and publish this title for the PlayStation 3 back in 2014. So, the original PS2 and PSP games were praised for both being a great boxing simulator and being faithful to the original manga. Yes, you can say, let's say for example, spam the Dempsey roll if you're playing as Ippo, but there were ways to work around that by sticking and moving and maintaining your distance. The games made full use of the ring by using effective footwork, in which in turn can be countered by pinning, such say, the opponent up against the ropes or the corners, which can also be applied to actual boxing, and as we've seen in the actual Hajime no Ippo manga itself. But with Bandai Namco, most famous for making, the Gundam vs. Arcade series these past few years, they brought the game to a more arcade-like element, which I'll now get into. The game has a best match mode, which is more or less a story mode where you can play as a variety of the characters from the manga, such as Ippo, Miyata, Aoki, Kimura, Takamura, Itagaki, Vorg, Sendo, Saomura, and so on. What's also neat is that it does explore some of, what if stories. Like take for example, what if Miyata beat Mashiba? Or what if Vorg beat Sendo? The game gives you the chance to explore what could have happened in those scenarios, which do lead to some exciting matchups. The cutscenes in the story mode use stills from the manga, which are colorized and voiced by the cast of the anime. So for example, Kohei Kiyasu will reprise his role as Ippo, and Tomokazu Seki will be back as Miyata. And since the game released after the airing of the third anime TV installment, Shouzo Izuka is also back as Kamoga, who replaced the original voice actor Kenji Utsumi, who passed away before the recording of that particular version of the anime. For characters exclusive to the manga, such as Randy Boy Jr., he is played by Shoji Tanaka, most famous as Falcon in Escaflowne, Soul in the recent Guilty Gear anime, Balrog in the Street Fighter II animated movie, and as Kazuya in the first Tekken games. Wally is played by Jun Fukuyama, most famous as Lelouch from Code Geass, and Alfredo Gonzalez is voiced by Daisuke Ono, most famous as Jotaro in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And they do excellent jobs in those roles, and if any future anime installments ever get around to their stories, I would like to see those actors come back to those roles. The game is portrayed from an angular third-person viewpoint where you view your boxer from behind or get a good view of your opponent. So sort of think of it as Punch-Out, but from an angle. And before each fight, you can give your fighter a set of skills. You can improve their cardio, their toughness, the strength of their hooks, or add special abilities such as deactivating an opponent's special move. One of my favorites is the ability to somewhat see your punches coming. Before they throw a punch, an opponent's left or right side will glow to indicate which hand they will use to throw a punch, and it'll give you ample time to defend, dodge, and counter. Some characters will have specials exclusive to themselves. For example, Ippo and Mashiba can have Kumi cheer for them, which will raise their spirits, while Aoki can also have the support of, let's say, Tomiko, his girlfriend, which has the same effects. Or with Sendo, he can have the kids cheer him on. What's also helpful is that you can actually change your skills in between rounds, so if you need better cardio, you're free to swipe one skill out for that one. Unlike previous releases, the PS3 game has a life bar, a cardio bar, and a guard bar. If you manage to drain an opponent's life bar, then you can score a knockdown. Above the life bar are spirit bars, and it'll be an indicator of how many downs you can take the entire fight. If you're out of them and take one last knockdown, then you're out for the count. However, if you or your opponent gets knocked down 3 times within a round, it's considered a TKO regardless of how many spirit bars you have left. And when throwing punches, it'll drain your cardio, and once you exceed that limit, your boxer will then need a moment to catch their breath, but when that happens, you'll be unable to control them, and they'll be suspected to attacks, so you need to watch out for that. As for the guard meter, if you get punched while in guard, or punch an opponent enough times while they are blocking, you can eventually break their guard and open them up to an attack. And unlike the PS2 games, you can't exactly spam specials, which may be a good or bad thing depending on how you like to play. You do this by building your burning meter, and the more the fire builds up, the more you have a chance to pull off a special just by pressing one of the shoulder buttons. each character will have their own unique attacks, based on the manga. So if you pull that off, you'll do enough damage to instantly score a knockdown. Let's say for Ippo, you can, let's say, do the Dempsey roll. Or with Miyato, you got the Jolt counter. And with Vorg, you got the White Fang and so on. And the more punches you land on an opponent's head or body, you can damage their head or body. And if you damage a person's head, then certain skills will be rendered unusable, and for body damage, it'll affect how much cardio they can recover. You can be up close and personal to fight your opponent, or you can gauge your distance to stall time if your life bar is low. The game relies a lot more on dodging and countering. So for example, with Ippo, you can just dodge and then follow it up with hooks until your cardio is almost up. But with some other fighters like Miyata, you have to follow up with straight punches, and with Kimura, you got to use uppercuts to the body. So once you master dodging and following up with countering, you've pretty much mastered the game to a large degree. I really like how, in the Victorious Boxer series, it felt like a true boxing simulator, but used gimmicks from the manga. For example, with Randy Boy Jr., he can't exactly switch stances within the fights of this game, but play as him in the PSP games, you can freely switch stances. As in, he can switch between being left-handed or right-handed. I felt range was always excellently emphasized and utilized in the Victorious Boxer series based on whoever you used, while in this game, it's not really that well emphasized. Still, as characters from the manga, they are well emphasized. Ippo and Sendo will rely more on their power. Itagaki can throw more punches and bunches at blazing speeds, but they won't do the same amount of damage as, let's say, Ippo's and Sendo's punches. But either way, once you know how to dodge and counter, the principal foundations are still the same. I felt like this game was a simpler version of Punch-Out, where once you dodge a punch, you can just throw some combos and that's it. There's no need to stick and move as if you're playing as, let's say, as Miyata, or force somebody to a corner, or up against the ropes if you're, let's say, Ippo. The graphics are excellent and very much in tune with the manga, so I can't complain about those. The music is very dramatic, and I love how voice acting is actually utilized. So if you're a fan of the series, and you're looking for something much simpler that feels more arcadey, then I do suggest this game. I think of this game as whoever makes the first mistake loses, since it's easy to dodge and capitalize. Though I wouldn't call the countering system as emphatic as, let's say, you'd say in Fight Night Round 4 or Fight Night Champions. But if you want a true boxing simulator, then I would strongly recommend the PS2 games, especially Victorious Road for its Boxer's Road mode, which I did a review on that you can check out. But for pure fans of the manga, then I would still recommend this regardless.